Liverpool and Man City both lose. An Eddie hat-trick helps Arsenal thrash Tottenham. And Everton win despite being down 10 for the whole game in one of the most strangest red card incidences I've seen in a while. I'm Christopher Coleman. You're watching AfterMatch. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of AfterMatch. It took me about 6 goes to try and do that intro bit, so yeah, so if it is still a bit messy, I just went, that'll do. But yeah, this is match week 12, yes. This is my review of match week 12, which had a couple of very big games and very surprising results this week. And we kick it off again with my club Chelsea. It seems to be a bit of a theme recently. Burnley versus Chelsea. Ended up finishing 2-0 to Chelsea, but realistically Chelsea were comfortable throughout the entire thing. It all started... Actually, Burnley actually, give them credit, started quite well in this game. They were getting behind our back line so many times. And there was a point where I was generally getting a bit worried. But my worries were quickly dashed when Pedro Neto scored I would say a diving header, but it was sort of something in the middle, but it was a good cross from Jamie Gittins, and we will go into half time 1-0 up. And to be fair, after we scored, Everton didn't really trouble us. Burnley didn't even trouble us. They only had 2 shots and they weren't anywhere near. Don't know why I said Everton. It's probably because the Everton game was yesterday as I'm recording this. I don't know whether this is coming out on Tuesday or Wednesday. You'll be able to work out by when it's uploaded. That's probably just still in my head, and I'll get to probably why at the end of the video. But yeah, the Chelsea side saw Tosin, Delap, Gittins. Like, I've seen a bunch of Chelsea fans rightfully saying, like, what does Esteban have to do getting to starting 11? I think, realistically, what Edwards is going to say is, look, he's only 18. There's not much. Is it you don't do just, like, play him and play him and play him, then he gets injured for, like, ages, and then you blame him anyway. So I think he's just playing it safe. It's like, when we've had a couple of seasons of him, he will be a regular starter and all that. I'll be quite sure of that. But just look at what I was going to say is just look at the Chelsea team where we had a couple of players who were notably left on the bench, like Moises Caicedo, and some who got taken off quite early on, like Reece James in the second half starter for Badiashile. Even though he didn't want to admit it was. I have a side feeling it was playing for the Barcelona game, which is going on tonight as I'm recording this. And to be honest, I know we're on a good winning run, but I'm not looking forward to it, to be honest. But yeah, we didn't get any massive injuries, apart from everyone getting worried that it might have been the case with Reece James, but he actually put on his Instagram story saying, guys, I'm fine, don't worry. But yeah, there's not much to say about this. It was just, I predicted 3-0, but I think everyone probably predicted Chelsea were going to have no problem with it. They saw how we fared in this second half against Wolves, and like I said in my prediction video, I don't see us having any problems, and we didn't. And I just want to quickly give a shout out to both centre backs of Chelsea, because in that first half when they were playing well, they got quite a few blocks in. You could argue that it's just Burnley being predictable, but everyone's entitled to their own opinion with that. Now let's move on to the 3 o'clockers. First one was Bournemouth West Ham. Even though they got pegged back, West Ham's resurgence is starting to take shape now. They won against Newcastle, who got ahead of our away record. They beat Burnley in a game where it was a bit end to end in the end. I'm saying the word end along the sentence. But they were actually 2-0 off in the game against Bournemouth. Callum Wilson pretty much showing why West Ham had signed him, why at the start. I actually started this channel for people who are just joining that I actually started this halfway through the season, but I was thinking when West Ham signed Callum Wilson, I saw a load of people going, oh, but he's this age and he's always injured, blah, blah, blah. But I always thought it was the kind of bit of business, and it's proven to be that way. I'm not so sure why they took him off at half time. It's not showing off as him being injured, so it was 52 minutes and he got taken off for Thomas Soucek, I think. Which I'm still quite confused about. Like, I'm not annoyed about, because I said in the previous one I'm alright with Soucek starting up front. It just felt a bit weird like when you were 2-0 up and you could have probably tried to run away with it. And that wouldn't be the case. Bournemouth ended up getting back into it with... First it was a Tavernier pen, which... Max Kilman generally slides and he realises he's not going to get anywhere near it and just smacks the ball out of the way. Not like that, not... But you get what I mean, he was sliding and then just like, oh, I'm not going to get the ball, and just smacked it out of the way. And of course you're going to get a penalty for that. Whether he thought it was like a penalty worth giving away because of the chance he might miss it, we'll never know. Realistically, we never know what's going through some people's heads when they make decisions like that. And then, watching highlights back, the equaliser was coming for Bournemouth. And it came from a player I genuinely forgot was still at Bournemouth, Eddie Udall, who I think he scored a really good free kick against West Ham in the past, and he was going to score. I think it was 55 seconds after coming on, which was what was probably his first touch. Which is always great when that happens. So yeah, I don't think West Ham will be too hacked off about drawing the game, because I probably would have taken it at full time. It's just the manner of which they did it is probably what was annoyed a load of people. Anyway, moving on to Brighton Brentford. I'm going to talk about my dream team, my fantasy team. I've decided to put Welbeck in, and I'm quite happy I did now. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about fantasy league. I just wanted to point that out. Brentford will lead for quite a bit of this game through an Igor Thiago penalty, which he would... I'll get onto that later. So for the best of all, I can't remember what actually happened in the... Can't remember what happened with that penalty. But yeah, Brentford are in front. Everyone... I think for quite a bit of the game we thought they were just going to run away with a 1-0 win. And then Welbeck was just being classic Welbeck this season. It's not surprising why he's getting mentioned in the England World Cup squad all the call-ups and stuff. There's no surprise why he's getting mentioned, because his form's been unbelievable. And then someone who hasn't scored in a while, but is quite I think it's one of the homegrown players, Jack Inshelwood, started and finished off the move and ended up getting them ahead. Then they got another penalty. I think this was one where he got brought down by... When Kevin Schade got brought down by someone. Yeah, it was one where the person pulled him down in the box. It was a quite good spot from the referee, but Igor Thiago couldn't score the second one. It wasn't the greatest penalty in the world. Verbrugge didn't really have that much trouble with it. Yeah, it puts Brian up to 6th. Like, Brian are quietly having quite an alright season at the minute. And yeah, moving on, Fulham Sunderland. Sunderland have lost a game. I was wondering, people were wondering how long until they'll lose another game. Like, lose another game against someone who they probably should be beating with the form they're on. It was Fulham, who have been struggling to score this season, I think. Yeah, so 13 goals, yeah. One of the lowest out of everyone. And to be fair, Sunderland have only scored 14, but they were like good defensively, that's why they were so up in the table. And I'm going to be honest, with the form they're on, this okay was a massive surprise for me. With Raul Jimenez, it's a proper striker's goal for Jimenez's goal, just sticking your leg out and getting a touch on it. But I think we weren't expecting Sunderland to get into the European spots. Like, what Wolves did in that season when they first came up was ridiculous. I don't think anyone's expecting Sunderland to do it. I still expect to go and finish around that mid-table sort of bracket bit. They're going to be fine. They're going to stay up. But they'll need like an absolute meltdown to not stay up at this point. Yeah, big win for Fulham. Sunderland's team was the same one, roughly the same ones that's faced all the other teams they've been playing. It's just sometimes, because they lost to Burnley as well, if you remember, at the start of the season. Sometimes with like mid-table sides, sometimes have a tactic that will actually work against the bigger sides, as we've seen against Arsenal, Chelsea, and all of them. Because Man United's a bit of an anomaly in this, but Burnley and Fulham just have figured out a way to beat them. And sometimes you do struggle against the worse off teams if you're playing a certain way. And that's probably the case here. Yeah, Sunderland lost. I don't think they're going to be particularly bothered. As long as they just get enough points to stay up, I don't think many Sunderland fans will care, really. But many Sunderland fans were already brushing off people saying, "Oh, Sunderland could do less," and there was a bunch of Sunderland fans just saying, "No, we won't." He's like, I've seen quite a few Sunderland fans on social media who are relatively sane and like realistic. Like the only time like Leicester fans were saying we're going to win the league was like in jest in the start of the season, but it was only till like March or April where with some Leicester fans on social media and on TV and stuff would start to admit that this might be possible, this might happen. Notable one being Gary Lineker, match of the day. Anyway, yeah, I don't think that Sunderland will be too fast. A team that is going to be quite fussed about the result will be Liverpool, where Nottingham Forest absolutely ripped them apart, as I said at the start. The big talk was from the first goal, It was like there's like a player standing in the eye line and stuff like that. But the whole point of it is we already had like the PGMOL or just someone from the Referees Association or whoever it was come on and say that Van Dijk's goal should have been given against Man City. So with that in mind, when this happened, the correct decision was made. It's just they've got to follow the rules. They've got to try and keep as consistent as possible. Unfortunately, that could end up affecting the team who complained about it in the first place, like Liverpool. Yeah, in this game, it's the start of it when you watch the highlights back. It's like all Liverpool chances. I don't know whether that's just Liverpool had better chances with Nottingham Forest playing better, or this Murillo goal was genuinely against the run of play. But after the goal and into the second half, it's just like Liverpool completely fell apart. We had Nicolas Savona, who's now got his second goal against one of the big six. Like scoring into the first minute of the second half. You're watching Soccer Saturday, and generally seeing it come off as 2-0 Nottingham Forest. Well, it was actually people thought it might be 2-0 before half time, but I think it got disallowed. I think it was for handball. I might be wrong with that, but it was eventually 2-0 quite early on in the second half. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And then it got even worse near the end of the game where Gibbs White got Nottingham Forest's third. Just want to quickly point out, for if someone suddenly finds this like years later, the context here: Liverpool at this point were near the top of the table. Nottingham Forest was second from bottom, and they found the form that they had last season. They absolutely ripped Liverpool apart, and somehow better than they did last season. Football's a funny old thing. Stuff like this can happen. Like you had Aston Villa beating Liverpool 7-2. You had Chelsea game beating 5-2 at home by West Brom of all teams. It can happen. The Premier League and like almost every league, you can argue anyone can beat anyone. You will get that shock result. So like a team just comes out with the wrong mentality or stuff like that. So yeah, moving on to I think my if I'm remembering my quick 5 predictions I did well it'll be this one last Thursday because that's what I always do. I always do on the Thursday. That was good. That was my notification. But I think this is the only one I got right. It was Wolves 0, Crystal Palace 2. Rob Edwards' first game as Wolves boss, which is an appointment where no offence to Rob Edwards himself, but it wasn't like one to fill the Wolves fans up with confidence. It was just, this is the manager of a team that just got relegated in Luton. And just got relegated 2 seasons ago. But it's not going to fill anyone full of confidence when you saw Rob Edwards' CV. And it didn't look that way against Crystal Palace. Although Wolves had plenty of chances. Like, in the highlights you had Ladislav Krejci. Probably butchered that. I probably really badly butchered that. Apologies. But Krejci, this is like a 3:00 kickoff like compilation of the entire Saturday was just a compilation of people missing sitters. I'll get on to the game that had the most in a minute. But it ended up coming in the second half with 2 goals in 6 minutes. First one from Daniel Munoz, which had an extensive VAR check and everything was fine. The Eurofino, what a goal, by the way. With a team like Wolves, 2-0 is usually enough. Like, 2-0 is everyone goes, oh, wait, they can go to 2-1, blah, blah, blah. With how badly Wolves are playing, 2-0 is game over. Even people on BBC Sport, as soon as the second one went in from the Eurofino, they immediately just put game over and they still had about 20 minutes left. I saw people on like social media saying, can you really call it game over when there's still 20 minutes left? With the way Wolves are playing, yes they can. Wolves are in trouble. Like, we always say, what teams is going to finally beat Wolves' record of 11 points? Again, I think this is going to be a thing where everyone's going to be talking about it the whole season, and then they get to like 12 points with about 5 games left, or they just get a run of form, whatever. I highly doubt it's going to be another case of this happened last season, and then Southampton got to 12 points and they celebrated it because they was like, we're not going into the record books in first place. But I think the last couple of seasons, when people have been talking about, are they going to get the lowest number of points? Are they going to beat Derby's record? Shows you how bad Derby's record was. The fact that even the worst teams are struggling to get so low points. Usually struggling as being the other teams are struggling to beat them sometimes. But yeah, I want to know what you think. How many points do you think Wolves are actually going to get? Like, I don't normally get comments on these podcasts. It's just in this is a bit of fun. If I finally get someone with like job search and stuff like that, which I'm going to be honest, I'm struggling with at the minute. If some like, if we finally get like some traction and things start getting moving, then this might get more views. So if anyone does see this video and wants to leave a comment, then feel free to. Just leave a comment down below how many points you expect Wolves to get, because at the moment it's hard to see them getting more points than they've got at the minute, because it can't seem to be anyone. As you can see, they've got no wins. We're 12 games in. The Bars went from 0, as in missing a sitter, to Hero scoring twice in the second half in a frantic 7 minutes to beat Man City. It was a game where, in that first half, how there was no goal scored in that first half is beyond me. That Walter Marler should have had 2, Haaland should have had 2, Barnes missed it, and Foden missed a sitter in there because of how good they are. We went to half time 0-0, no one could work out why. But the goals eventually did come in the second half, where Barnes made up for his miss in the first half with a really good finish in the bottom corner. It's always a case of the commentator's curse when people on Sky Sports said, so can they keep it this time? And then they conceded 5 minutes later. But then Man City's equalised for only last 2 minutes. When the cross got headed across Bruno Guimaraes, heading onto the crossbar, which led right at the feet of Harvey Barnes to get his second. He was just about onside. We had a couple of tight ones this week. Like on that second one, it was like, this is all going to get some good news in a second. And yeah, it leaves. Well, Newcastle's still quite low down in the table, but I reckon that it's only a matter of time before I start moving up the table again. Ended up being quite a good week for Arsenal and Chelsea. Chelsea are now up to second. Arsenal are now 6 points clear. Going to Arsenal in a minute. As I'm talking for quite a bit, I just realised that I'm about 25 minutes in already. So, yeah, moving on to Sunday. We had Leeds Aston Villa as the early game, where Leeds' goal was an interesting one, it was a contentious one again. But how I saw it, and people might not agree with me, is that Amy Martinez just couldn't get anywhere near it, and Anton Stack just got a touch first, and there's nothing wrong with that. Although there might be an argument that Anton Stack probably wished he didn't do it now after having to come off about 5-10 minutes later. Because it was a bit of a landing, but anything for the team really. It looked like Leeds were actually going to win the game, but it took. It was sort of a thing this week as well. It only took Aston Villa 3 minutes of the second half to get an equaliser through Morgan Rogers. It was a great cross and finish. What was even better was the free kick, which somehow deceived Lucas Perry in the goal. He's jumped the wrong way, and he's got in the top. This will be the other way around, so I'll do that just to be safe. Because ended up going in the corner the opposite of where he jumped. It doesn't look like he got a deflection. It just looks like he's managed to curve the ball not how Lucas Perry expected it to. It just caught him completely off guard. It's quite a good finish seeing how close he was to the actual penalty box. It's one of those ones where, as the co-commentator said during the game, you probably just had to leather it, just fire it. But Morgan Rogers just got it up and down, just went, that'll do nicely, basically. So now, this is the first game this season that Leeds have actually started in the relegation zone, and they will stay in it. I'm thinking with West Ham's resurgence, with Nottingham Forest's resurgence, it wouldn't surprise me if the bottom three of Leeds, Burnley, Wolves ends up being what the bottom three is. It would be annoying to see two more of the promoted sides go back down again. But the good thing about Leeds and Burnley, unlike Wolves who have been up since the 2018-19 season, Leeds and Burnley are actually bought to put up a fight in this relegation battle. And if Nottingham Forest and West Ham end up losing traction again, and they start losing again, Leeds and Burnley will be the first two teams to capitalise on it. Whereas in the last couple of seasons, by about halfway through the season, the bottom three had already been basically split off from everyone else, not really putting much of a fight up. So yeah, that's all I've got to say about that. And now, Eze, for quite a bit of the transfer window, looked like he was going to Tottenham. But he ended up going to Arsenal. Thomas Frank made a comment. Looked like every manager does when they don't get a player that they were looking for the whole season. You try to pretend you didn't want him in the first place, or you not getting him wasn't too important. But he would end up regretting it, which was not entirely his fault, after Eze scored a hat-trick. It was Arsenal were dominant in that first half, and they only managed to get their goals right near the end of the half. But for quite a bit of it, it looked like Tottenham might actually hold on until half time for Leandro Trossard going with help from a massive deflection from Mickey van der Ven. Before Eze scored a second 5 minutes later, which arguably probably shouldn't have counted because of the amount of people away. But like I said beforehand, we've just had a massive rule about Van Dijk's goal that you've now created a problem where in that sort of scenario where it probably should have been disallowed, they then remembered the rules and then thought we shouldn't rule it out. Then Tottenham players didn't complain about it. And yeah, this is my only thing I'm going to say about people saying about consistency and stuff. In some cases, it's like sometimes you get into scenarios where you just changed the rules, and then something else happens, which usually everyone will think, "Oh, don't need to get disallowed, don't need to get allowed." But we just changed the rules, which means it's not allowed. And he said he got a dilemma of, do I do the common sense thing of giving it, or do I follow the rules and not get into trouble with PG and well? Say, well, the rules are the rules. This goal shouldn't count. Like, there's a load of different stuff. The people who usually complain about it probably just looking at one decision and saying, oh, they're not being, here's one, here's another, they're not being, I don't know what first truth was at the start of that. Is that what? Well, on this week this happened, on this week this happened. And then they're just like, where's the consistency? And you just go, well, both of them things you just mentioned are completely subjective. Like, you can't call for consistency on stuff that's going to be subjective. Like, subjective means that what one referee's got to give it, one referee isn't going to give it. You just have to be lucky with which referee you get, really. Although I do think VR might be getting too subjective. But that's a discussion for another filler video if I need to do it. If you guys are actually interested in me talking about it, then you can let me know. But yeah, into the second half, it took, like I said, it's the theme of this match week. You had Savona against Liverpool. You had Morgan Rogers against Leeds. Then you had Eze against Tottenham. It was about 40 seconds in, and they were suddenly 3-0 up. Through Eze again, who was left completely open, which just showed Thomas Frank, as a defensive manager, clearly hasn't sorted out their defence for teams that play like Arsenal do. You could argue quite a few teams aren't going to, but there was particularly open. It was like startlingly open. And then, even though Arsenal scored 4 times, Tottenham definitely got goal of the night. Zubimendi missed, he had the ball for too long. I think it was here. Yeah, João Palhinha got a tackle on it. And then Richarlison scored from about, say here, about 40 yards out. And we were like, okay, I think almost everyone who wasn't of an Arsenal persuasion, like Tottenham fans, even some Chelsea fans, could be just from like a viewer standpoint, kind of wanted Tottenham to get another just to make it a bit more interesting. But that would never come, even though Tottenham, for like at least about 5-10 minutes of the score, were properly pushing. But then, as he managed to get his hat-trick, again, left completely open, free to take a shot. I think Thomas Frank and Thomas Frank came out and apologised to the fans, saying sorry you had to watch that. Gregorio Vicario came and said, basically just said they weren't good enough. So yeah, they've got Chelsea next week. Again, I'm not looking forward to that either. And then moving on to Monday, we had probably one of the most bizarre red cards I've ever seen. Like you've seen like Kieran Dyer and Lee Bowyer, which was quite a bit of time ago. You had Ricardo Fuller against Andy Griffith. You had, before all the old people, you had Steve McManaman and Bruce Grobbelaar. And then you had Tyrone Mings-El-Ghazi. You had plenty of times when the players started fighting each other. This was bizarre because it seemed to be just Idrissa Gana Gueye. He got annoyed at Michael Keane for standing still, which he's perfectly entitled to do, but it's the fact he got too physical with it. And I agree with what many people are saying on social media. I know, surprising. Like, when he showed the full-on angle, it was like a full-on slap. It's like, no matter what the rules say, if you slap someone, you're going to get sent off. And that's probably what Michael Keane was trying to say to him, just saying, you know it's in the rules, why did you do that? And he did come out and apologise afterwards, so I hope he actually went into the changing room and just said, what have I done? He was probably the most relieved man at Old Trafford when Kid and Dewsbury Hall scored later on. It was a great goal. I think they just tackled the ball off of him, but it laid up quite nicely. He was like, I'm just going to hit it. And he did, and it was a brilliant goal. As a former Chelsea player he is, quite happy to see him score. I said when he did score, I was like, I think Kendrick will end up just joining Chelsea too early. So him going to Everton was probably the right move after what happened at Chelsea when he wasn't getting any game time. Like, he's a midfielder and we signed him and he had to try and get past Caicedo, like Fernandes, Lavia. And then even going forward, you had Palmer, you had so many people you had to get past that it just felt a bit pointless at the time. So I'm not surprised we got rid of him. Not for a bad thing, just more because we signed him when we didn't need him. Which is something that I think Chelsea recently have been accused of doing, like signing players that we don't actually need. And I think quite a few teams have been guilty of that recently. Yeah, Man United didn't offer anything in this game. Which is actually, I think that's just my Chelsea brain. They had 25 shots, and the only reason they didn't score was thanks to Jordan Pickford just getting to everything. It's what you call a classic like smash and grab, because Everton had 3 shots and they all came in the first half. They got the goals, then they made the. Then during the game they're just going to sit back. They're just going to get this win. Like, with a team that manager like David Moyes and a team that can defend well, you should not give them a 1-goal lead, because they're very more than happy to just hold on to it at that point. So yeah, that's this week done. So first thing I'm going to do what I normally do and look at next week. See if there's any big games. We had Chelsea Arsenal like I mentioned, and I'm just looking at it now. The Sunday's looking quite good. We've got a 12 o'clock game, which is Crystal Palace Man United. Then we've got West Ham Liverpool, which could be interesting. got Liverpool as 4. Then Chelsea Arsenal, so that should be good. And then, as we're in a midweek one, just going to quickly run through how I think all the teams are going to get on. And there's a couple of very big games in this. Chelsea-Barcelona, as a Chelsea fan, I'll be happy with a point. I think at this point, Chelsea just have to accept that I think most of us will take them having just an extra game in the knockouts. If it means we're going to get into the later stages. But we've got our remaining games. It's still entirely possible that we can scrape out a couple more points to get into that top 8. And a win against Barcelona tonight would be great and make our job a little bit more easier. I see Leverkusen. Leverkusen haven't looked great in the Champions League this season, so I think Man City will have no problem. I know they just lost Newcastle, but they're not going to have any problems with Leverkusen, I don't think. But of course, the Champions League, so I could be made to eat my words by the end of tonight. Marseille Newcastle. Newcastle have been looking very good. I don't think they'll have any problem, even though they're going to be in France, in Marseille. I don't think Newcastle will have any problem with that. Although it might just be my English brain kicking into gear. And then the next day, tomorrow, we've got Arsenal versus Bayern Munich. That is a proper test for Arsenal. We'll see where they're at. Can they actually win this whole thing? A win against Bayern Munich will make people think, okay, they might be able to win this. Which is something they've wanted for quite a while. Then you got Liverpool PSV, which I'm not sure about again because they've just lost 3-0 to Nottingham Forest. In my head, they're going to be okay, but in reality, they might not be. But I think if they win, it's one of those things where if they win, no one's going to be surprised, but if they lose, no one's going to be surprised. It's one of those ones. And PSG Tottenham, a repeat of the Super Cup final. With the way Tottenham are playing, I'm not expecting them to be 2-0 up for like they were in the Super Cup final. I imagine PSG aren't going to be too happy with how the Super Cup went. I've said the Super Cup quite a few times in this sentence. They're not going to be happy with how that match went. And I expect PSG are just going to, well, potentially brush them aside, but potentially not as well. I think PSG win. The only thing I can see is PSG winning. And I haven't done this before. Even though as you can probably see by this timestamp right now, we're running a bit over what my usual videos will be. But I just thought I'd go quickly through the Europa League and Conference League. I haven't done that in the last couple of match weeks, and I kind of feel bad. So, Aston Villa versus BSC Young Boys. How are they actually going on? Actually, they're quite low down. I think Aston Villa will be fine with that. Nottingham Forest, who are going to be on a high after the Liverpool game, we've got Malmö. I think that's how you pronounce it. And yeah, Malmö aren't doing well either. So wouldn't be surprised if Nottingham Forest have no problem with that. Then Crystal Palace have Strasbourg, which I'm a bit conflicted about because you want the English sides to win sometimes when it comes to European competitions. But then Strasbourg is owned by Bluecoat, who own Chelsea. If you didn't know that, so I'm a bit conflicted. And it's interesting to win that because I'm not going to use my Chelsea brain or my just normal England brain. I'm not too sure, so I'm going to put a draw for that just to save me having to pick one. And then you've got Rangers to the bottom, who've got Braga. We're surprised if Rangers lose that again. So to get Feyenoord, they probably will lose that because Feyenoord are a good team. But anyway, we're now 45 minutes in. I feel like I need to get this video over and done with, just so I can actually export this quick enough to actually get released. And next week should be interesting. And I'm just happy that if you actually saw my last video about me talking about your university experience, it was the most scuffed thing I've ever done. Because I just need to get a video out and just had no plan. But yeah, we're back to normal schedule, which I'm very happy about. Hope you enjoyed watching. I'm Christopher Coleman. This has been AfterMatch. I'll see you next week. Thank you for watching AfterMatch. If there's any match day you missed, I've made quite a few episodes from the last couple of match weeks on my YouTube channel. Check them out if you want to see my opinion on some of the other big decisions, big games, and just anything else from the last couple of match weeks. Be sure to check out my website, The Centre Circle, which I'm hopefully going to start uploading again by the time you're listening to this. Also, come up with something to write for it. So make sure to check that out. There's links in my About page on YouTube. And yeah, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next week.